Good morning, everybody. It's just about 11 o'clock, and I thank everybody for accommodating the late start. As Lewis said, this should be a short meeting. This is a meeting of the New York State Cemetery Board for July 13th, 2021. I think I'll start by introducing the board members. I'm Jill Faber. I'm the representative of Attorney General Letitia James. Tom
Fuller, representing Dr. Howard Zucker for the Department of Health.
And is Mark Pattison here? No, Mark isn't available, so I'll be chairing the meeting this morning. The first thing on our agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from last month. I'll ask the board members if anybody has any questions or any proposed revisions to the minutes from last month. I don't have any.
None here.
None here. Okay. There being no questions, no revisions, I will make a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting. That's the June 8th meeting. Do I have a second?
I guess I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The minutes are approved for last month. Next on our agenda is to go through the presentation of the legislative report, and for that, I'll turn to Rob.
Thank you, Jill. This is Rob Vanderplas, interim counsel to the Cemetery Board and Division. The legislature has closed out its session, and before doing so, there was some movement on legislation relevant to the Cemetery Board. Assembly 382, Senate 5535, which would permit a cemetery to dispose of remains through organic natural reduction, was committed to rules in the Senate. Assembly 4160 and Senate 1647, which would prohibit, with exceptions, the sale of certain memorabilia of veterans and veterans groups, was committed to rules in the Senate. Assembly 6740A, Senate 6171B, which would amend the grandfather clause of the anti-combination law to permit a crematory that is part of a grandfather combination within the town of Tonawanda to move under certain conditions, passed both houses of the legislature. Assembly 6971, Senate 6257-J, providing a procedure for the leasing of cemetery lands, was signed into law July 1st and is effective on that date. And Assembly 7301 and Senate 6521, permitting the use of electronic signatures on funeral and cemetery documents, was signed into law on July 1st and is effective on that date. Brief regulatory update. We are at DOS awaiting final approval to publish the notice of proposed rulemaking for the proposed regs regarding abandonment, and we hope to receive that soon. That concludes my report. Any questions?
None here.
Thank you.
None here.
I neglected to say at the beginning of the meeting that those of you who are joining by phone, please identify yourself when you speak, and those of you who are lobbyists, even if you're attending in person, you'll need to identify yourself when you speak. So there are no questions about the legislative report. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the division report, and I'll turn to Lewis to provide that.
I'm going to take the stuff on the agenda in reverse order and begin with our delinquent cemeteries project. We have a significant minority of cemeteries that are behind on filing annual reports, and we've been calling them and trying to find out what's keeping them from filing and encouraging them to file. We've gotten through about a third of the delinquent cemeteries so far, and we're still making those calls. Hopefully we'll be getting submissions and then helping them get into compliance. If anybody is out there and hearing this and is behind on their annual report and doesn't have an extension and needs help, please reach out to us and we can find somebody to help out. So that was number one thing. The number two thing, Alicia, did we do a delegated functions report, or do you want to just postpone that till next month?
I did one. There were only
Okay,
two
I'll let
del-
you do it in a minute. Let me just make sure that anything else that I have talked about. Otherwise, I'll just turn the floor over to you. No, I think that's it. You go ahead.
Okay, there were only two delegated duties that had any movement the past quarter. We received 97 rate applications and we have approved 114 in the second quarter. We received 13 rules and regulations and we approved 5. That's it. So far, we've received 1,283 annual reports, of which 461 were online, representing 36% of all reports received.
Are there any questions about that? Louis, do you want to?
No, I mean,
Elise, are you going to present the vandalism report?
Yes, I will.
Okay, great.
So far, in 2021, we have collected vandalism fees of $565,893. Assessment collections are $317,922. Fiscal year beginning April 1st, vandalism was $134,068, and assessments was $74,997.
Thank you. Thank you, Alicia.
and we have,
All right, we have an application from Danby Rural Cemetery on today's agenda. It's an application for hazardous monument repair in the amount of $32,319.33. Do we have someone to present that?
Yeah, good morning. It's Brendan Stanton with the division. We've got this application from the Danby Rural Cemetery, town of Danby, Tompkins County. They have applied twice previously for funds to restore monuments and have another batch that they've identified. I visited the cemetery and verified that the monuments included in the application did appear to be hazardous. They provided us with 2 estimates, and I am recommending in favor of approval in the amount of the lower estimate combined with the cost of advertising in the amount of $32,319.33.
Are there any questions? Rob, does council have any concerns or issues to discuss in connection with this application?
Well, thank you, Jill. No comments or concerns from council.
Okay. And the number of hazardous monuments is 26, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. There being no questions, I will make a motion then to approve the application of Danby Rural Cemetery for hazardous monument repair in the amount of $32,319.33. Do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion is approved. The application is approved. Next on our agenda is a discussion relative to Mount Olivet Cemetery, and I will again turn to Louis.
I have some interim good news on this, and then I realized I forgot something in the division report. First, Mount Olivet, it's my understanding that the cemetery has retained a firm to look at some of the issues that we identified with them. Firm, an independent firm that's taking a look at those things, and I haven't seen a sign. I was originally going to ask that we push off any of their deadline to respond. Their deadline to respond to object to the penalty we proposed. They've already done that, so I don't know that technically we need to extend the deadline, but we have been doing it. Since I haven't seen the retainer, I'm going to suggest that we extend it just till the end of August, but I expect we're going to recommend at the next meeting that we push it out significantly more to let the independent firm do its work. But for now, I'm just asking that the board table any obligation they would have to pay or to supplement their response or what have you or otherwise respond to August 31st.
And so tabling it until the end of August, that would be done under the assumption that they have retained a firm to do the audit, and that at that point, because that audit will be underway, we'll then have a longer.
We cannot hear Louis.
Can you hear me? So we have
Yeah,
oral confirmation from the firm that they've been retained, but we don't have a timeline or time. So it's gonna kind of wait. I'd like to wait, give it longer.
We still can't hear you very well.
Let me try this again. Is this any
That's
better?
better. It's
Okay.
much better.
So they retained an outside firm to review a bunch of transactions. We don't know, we haven't seen an actual signed retainer, but we spoke to the representative from the firm. And more importantly, we don't know how long this review is going to take. So I'm asking that the board, to the extent it's even necessary, push out the cemetery's time to object or otherwise respond or pay the proposed penalties till August 31st, with the understanding that by then we'll have a better sense of how long this process will take, and we'll be asking the board to do this again to the extent needed, for a much longer period, come the August meeting.
And my only thought with regard to that, and I think it's fine, is that between now and the August 31st meeting, whether it's you, Louis, or somebody else, if we could have presented to the board at that time, a timeline and a plan, so that when we do approve further extending, we'll know what they're going to be doing, how long it's going to take, and we'll have a firm timeline. I wouldn't want to, personally, I would feel more comfortable pushing it out beyond a month if we had confirmation of obviously certainly the signed retainer and a timeline.
Louis, we can't hear you.
Timeline and retainer are certainly going to be things we could report in open session next month. The details of the process, I think probably, even though it's a third party doing it, might still fall under investigative material that we can't talk about. It also might be an issue for the independent firm if we're talking publicly about exactly what they're looking into. So long as we're reporting on, yes, there is a retainer and here's the timeline, that should not be a problem. To the extent we need anything else, and to the extent council deems it appropriate, we'd have to go into executive session, I think.
Are there any other comments or questions from the board members about this matter?
None here.
So,
None from council.
council, do you have any questions or comments?
No, only to Louis's point that I'll work with division to determine the parameters of what exactly any investigation and retainer entails for the purposes of determining whether or not executive session is necessary.
Okay, thank you. And I think then, Rob, that we'll need to vote to approve the additional month extension. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I will make a motion then that we approve extending the cemetery's time to respond or pay the fine that's been levied. August 31st, is that the timeline now?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the motion to extend the time till August 31st.
I second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And we have approved the motion to extend their time to respond until August 31st. Thank you.
I give one thing from the division report, which is that the governor signed legislation allowing for electronic signatures on certain death-related documents. For the Division of Cemeteries, the only document really affected that's sort of quote unquote our document is the cremation authorization. We are working on guidance on what it means to witness electronic signatures under this. We've got a working draft that still needs approvals that we hopefully will be able to share as a guidance document on this issue shortly. Can't do that quite yet. It still needs to be reviewed and approved, but we're pretty close. If any crematory has specific questions in the interim, just give me a call directly, please.
Okay, so at this time, I'll open it up to any public comment. Anybody on the phone or any of folks in person joining us in Albany? Okay, well, there being no comment, then I think we can make a motion to adjourn to close the meeting, which I will do. I motion to adjourn the July 13th, 2021 meeting at this time. We don't have an executive session, so the meeting will end. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And our next meeting, Louis, if you'll help me, what's the date for the next meeting? We're just checking the date for the next meeting. Our next meeting will be August 10th. So I thank you, everybody. And again, thank all those in favor of approving the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion to adjourn is approved. I thank everybody again for accommodating our time change. Much appreciated. Have a good month, and we'll see everybody next month in August.